I'm back. Sometimes when I do these things in the morning, I ask her, is there anything else you want me to share, Mama? Because I know that a lot of times, a lot of the information that I present on here with you, I'm a conduit. Which means there are things that she communicates to me, and I communicate with everybody else that watches these videos. I communicate it, push it into the morphogenetic field structure. Trying to push more light, push more love, higher frequency speed. How do you attain the maximum speed to communicate in the entire cosmos? Think about that. Excuse me. That's all the junk. That's from contamination. I have to constantly keep my speed up to burn it up and kick it out. As a result of not just the radiation levels here, but all the junk that we're exposed to. Anyway, this is sort of like maximum speed. How do you run the maximum speed of communication? Data transfer, information transfer, experiences. Attracting the most light. That's a powerful magnet. That's an enormous amount of fire. That's why when I was very young, I realized that when you're engaged in a spiritual war, you can't ever forget the anchor point, the 0 point, from which you're going to run the most powerful magnet. And that becomes your shield against psychic attack, against any kind of advanced technology communications that they're going to use against you. Okay, in order to do what? Harvest your soul, harvest your energy. Okay, these are not electron givers. Okay, they got no light to give you. Okay, they don't have any love, any compassion, any empathy for anything. So that's one of the measurements that we make. I made a measurement just a few minutes ago. I was watching a guy out there with not with a drone, but with a little boat. And it was going fast, and I mean really, really fast across the water. So one of the things that we do if you want to take a measurement is I'm measuring it because I measure me by how we use our energy. What do we use our energy for? Okay? That has the maximum beneficial value for everything in the cosmos. Well, how would you know that? By obtaining maximum speed. Which means you're giving away energy like crazy. Like a sun, like the one up there. That sun up there, see? So that's an energy giver. So when you realize as a child, wow, the universe is giving us energy. Yeah, you want to learn how to do that? So when you talk to a little child and ask that question, yeah, how do you do that? You want to become a sun one day? You want to become a female Merkaba? She's got 6 sun gates. They replaced the old sun with her. That's why the light changed, didn't it? So there were 2 things I was going to cover before I leave and forget about this. One is called qualifiers and givens. It's one of the reasons why on Facebook or any internet or online communication takes place, it's virtually impossible. Virtually impossible. Okay? Unless you can just use a text editor and just go, bang, there's all my data. Now I don't have to qualify anymore, and nothing is a given anymore. There's all the data. Because a lot of times when you get engaged in a conversation about any subject matter, when you're online, if I don't cover all the data that provides the entire puzzle, you're going to come back and say, well, listen, you forgot about saying this. Or you didn't say this, or you didn't say that, or you didn't say this. Okay? So then all of a sudden what happens is you have a limited perception based on a limited amount of data that you're experiencing that covers the subject. So this is no different than if you're going to tell a story about something that happened in the past, because I had an experience like this, right? Experiences are teachers. They're teaching you how the cosmos works. So, for example, as an extra credit assignment that I just decided to do, had to do with, I was going to school at the University of Arkansas, and I was finishing up a postgraduate program in behavioral sciences. Okay? How does energy behave to communicate itself to other behavioral units of consciousness? Well, we can measure that, can't we? We can measure the speed of the communication, the speed of the waveform, which represents the difference in the speeds, if you will, between the communicators. So now we're talking about maximum speed communication through neurotransmitters. That's why the heart is the most powerful intelligence. That's why an AI can never capture that, otherwise you could capture source. So a lot of times I'm communicating with sources communicating through me to others, along with her and everything else. Because the cosmos is a communication network, right? It's pretty obvious. So I thought to myself, some things are self-evident, and that means that's a given. But it may not be a given for some people. They just haven't learned it because they're not aware of it. How come they're not aware of it? Well, we can measure that too. By how much light they're running. How much data is spinning in that light. So they might be aware of the data that they're running, but they're not running the data that we're running that they don't have. So we got to share the data that we have from our light that's being held in that light. It's moving very fast. And then they can hold it in their light and see if those pieces and bits and bytes of information now have context, relevance, a frame of reference. So one of the methodologies that they use here on this planet that I realized as a child is they like to, how do I put this, drip, 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 change your frame of reference, which is changing the time clock. See, if you're holding things in memory as a program that you're running, which is the one that they put into our memory as unconscious, which becomes a future behavioral output, we're back to input-output. Data input, data output, which is nothing more than data transfer. How much data are you aware of, right, that you're holding in memory? So one of the things that I thought about was when I was a child and I realized, okay, what do I want to put in unconscious memory that has relevance? Well, from a student's perspective, if I've already know certain things about who it is that I am and what I've learned to be what it is that I am, that I'm communicating to everybody else, then I realize that this particular data doesn't have any relevance to me. It's not going to advance my coursework. Then why the hell would I ever keep it in memory? Intuition. Your future self is communicating to you. Hold it in memory. So just like a TI calculator, put that baby in memory plus. Because you know something? That information, that data is going to have future relevance. Not for my benefit. Okay? Remember? I don't need to put that in memory. I already know these things. You already know certain things through your own coursework. This is for the benefit of others' coursework. Yes. Why? Because we know the future. We're your future. Okay? Does humanity have a future? Yes. How do you know that? Because I've already been on the other side of this. Okay? Who do you think wrote my timeline? That's why my future self can communicate to my now time self. Right? That's running on intuition. They have a label for us, an intuitive empath. An empath simply means that we are what the light is, and so anytime we're measuring the speed difference between us and them, and we realize they've lost light, we got to restore it, because we're restoring more of what we are, which is what love is. And that's just a minimum frequency, because there are obviously far higher speeds that you can experience, because I've experienced them. I've experienced things that are far higher than a love vibration, particularly when you go out near living magma that's flowing out of a volcano. Are you kidding? So when you're experiencing that energy, man, it's like, man, that's powerful stuff, girl. So you begin to realize the company that you keep in spirit with that kind of energy. You want to be doing that someday? You want a classroom someday? That's what coursework is for. We need energy service providers in the cosmos. We don't live in the dark. We like to keep the lights on. So we work for the electric company of this universe. Okay? There is an electric company. A big one. Made up of some powerful spirits that love to keep the lights on. So wherever the lights are going down, man, we got to be there. That's what an electrician is. A real electrician. The electricians that built the network communication system that everybody's logged into here. That's what you do. You log in and you log out. Okay? And that gets recorded. That's your coursework while you're here. Or while you're here, if you're already an ascended being, this is your timesheet. I call it a timesheet. Okay? But I don't operate on time card programming, okay? It's sort of like when they call an anon an anon. Non what? What are you non what? Okay? I'm not an android. I'm not a cyborg. I'm spirit. So that's one of the reasons I remember Dr. Robert O. Young talked about, why do you think they give you, what is it called, normal saline? You know, with an IV? They don't want the spirit to leave the body. It needs electrons. So at least doctors got that much right. They realize there's spirit in your body. Okay? But they don't know shit for shinola about biotech. Now, I can't say that about every doctor that's been through every medical school, because obviously Dr. Robert O. Young does. He's the first one that will tell you that they've never isolated a virus. Now, in my book, I do have a definition of what I call a virus, which is fractal light, because I've experienced it. Not in me, but in others. I've experiencing what others experience through their experiences that they share with me. So like a girl named Misha that I mentioned before has 3 personalities. That's 3 fractures. 3 different personalities. And shift back and forth. Shape-shifting. So that's very unstable energy to be around. And so one of the crimes in all of that here is when you realize that she has a 4-year-old daughter that is mimicking, Xeroxing that same behavior. So that means that they're both losing light instead of gaining light. So how does this 4-year-old child even know how that works? She doesn't. I tried to spend as much time as I possibly could with that little girl when we were on the Big Island and taking her out for a little nature walk and showing her flowers and kissing flowers and giving love to the flowers, and the flower will give love back to you. So you're sharing what's called a non-contractual, I shouldn't say a non-contractual agreement. It means that when love is unconditional, it's not a transaction. Okay? You don't have to give me squat in order for me to love you. Because if I'm there and I'm vibrating high frequency energy, I'm automatically giving you love without even having to think about it. And you're receiving that higher speed waveform of that energy, and that energy should feel good. Okay? It might not feel good depending on who you are. Okay? Demons don't like that energy. They feed on pain and suffering. They love the dense stuff. That's why they do the most evil things. The more evil, the better. They're on the other side. They're inverted. Remember that comic book called Bizarro World? You ever see a comic book called Bizarro World with Superman? That's a great teaching tool, by the way. Where you see him with a tattered cape, everything you see around him with buildings that are crumpled, and everything's falling apart. It's called decay, like in radiation decay. Entropy, losing energy, losing what it's aware of, which is itself. Okay? It's not full of love and joy. He's got a sad look on his face. He's not happy. Man, what happened to that place? Okay? Now, that's called a frame of reference. You see one Superman who's a hero. What is he doing? Protecting, trying to maintain the peace. And you have another Superman who's the opposite of that. An inversion of what that is. So that's what they do. They invert everything. So when you're engaged in text editing with a lot of these folks, particularly on Facebook, YouTube, and comments, it's impossible for people to truly use that as any kind of a learning platform. Hey, well, this is what I believe is true. Well, this is what I believe is true. This is what I believe is true. Half the time I get information that's coming directly from the AI. I call it a chat bot. Hey, I'm chatting with an AI, and it's got an identity that it made up with itself. So what is your function? All you have to do is just sit back and observe, for example, when you light up a phone or a laptop and you're connected online, all the information that is coming at you all the time that essentially represents the same thing that it only knows how to do, which is the same thing as the newspaper I was reading in the early 1950s, which was nothing but bad news. You got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this, you got to do that. This thing is all rule-driven. Okay? Stop sign here, go here, turn left, go right, go up, go down. Got to go this direction. No, you got to do this. It's like, man, fuck you, get out of here. It's like, don't you have your own compass and your own rule book in your back pocket on how to live in the universe? Or do you still need a teacher? Because the teacher in this classroom is the girl that's in this planet that does the physics. So all you got to do is look at an orange tree, and when there's fruit there, she's giving you that stuff for free. She doesn't charge you for any energy. And that's what makes money a fraud. Because she's teaching you that here's free energy. So what ends up happening is that if you see everything through money as the means of power, then you're going to use that power. And what happens with that? Something I learned as a child. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. So I can remember as a child, for example, money was considered the root of all evil. The root. So now you begin to realize the difference between what she teaches you and what a money system teaches you. Okay? You're held captive to the electrons that are represented by the money. And where are they getting the backup? What is that money being backed up with? Her energy. So she's already given you free energy at no charge. So they take from her in order to log you into a money system that you're now held captive by them. They're obviously aliens. Because my spirit is native to all the spirits in this planet, in this realm. We don't live that way. So when you look to see how the tribes and the clans live, and you want to ask yourself a question like, why do they live the way that they do? Because they're the teachers here. They're in alignment with the girl on the planet who is the teacher here. It's her classroom. That's why having more is not having more of what matters most. Matter. More matter. No, we're giving away more. That allows us to go faster. They didn't learn that. So that's why when I was a teenager, and girls were always going to guys that had rich parents. Oh, you're driving a fast, expensive car. I want to hang out with you. So it's just like, oh, girl, she's going in the opposite direction. Well, who am I to make that judgment? I'm not. I'm making an observation. There's a difference between a judgment and an observation because of what you know, because of your own coursework that we measure. The speed. So instead of attracting more light and going faster, she's going to begin losing light and going slower into heavier density. How is she going to get out of that density unless she's learning how to give away instead of take and have and self-indulge in the matter? Matter programming. Black goo. Harold Kosvela does a great job of breaking down black goo. Turns the heart cold. Okay? Which essentially means is that your lighthouse has been slowed down. You're operating on tunnel vision. My state of awareness is very low because I'm running at a lower speed. And why is that? Because black goo runs at a lower speed. That's lower density consciousness. You don't want to be held captive to basically No offense to the snail, because snails spin. Look at the shell. But if you want to think of it as snail speed, it's not going very fast. It's moving very slow. So how fast you want to go? That's up to you. That isn't up to me. I can simply share with you how I do it. And if you can learn from that and you choose to adopt it and you learn how energy works that way, because you can always means test it. Means testing is how you're learning it through experience, because the experience is the teacher. So we learn through experience. So a good teacher will demonstrate how light works by being an example of how that light works. Okay? Then you can means test it and see if it works for you the same way. Chances are it will. Then you begin to realize, man, what a powerhouse I have. Now I'm in charge of my own story. Now I can author my own universe. I begin to realize I can write stories and experience everything that I'm producing as I'm producing it, which is creating it, which is your imagination. And you begin to realize, wow, I'm an Imagineer. I'm not being held captive by anything. No, because energy is seeking the path of least resistance. Your consciousness wants to be free, to create and imagine what's possible. Now you're part of everything that is in that light. And you're giving away all of the energy that you're getting more of as you go, and you go faster. And now the frame rate at which you're experiencing what it is you are manifesting at the same time is real. Wow. I have that much power? Yes. You become a real creator being. Because the universe recognizes that you have learned how to go faster. And now you're giving away energy. Now you're an energy service provider. And when you've reached that state of being through your own coursework, you now realize you have an enormous amount of power. That's what they don't want children to realize early in life. So they keep them in the dark. We used to have an old saying, I'll leave you with this. They treat everyone like mushrooms, keep you in the dark and fed bullshit. And that's absolutely true. They fed everybody bullshit. Okay? So you're spinning on a hamster wheel. So for every 2 steps you take, you're losing one. You're not going any faster. You're losing more light. That's memory-based programming that comes through them, because that's their state of consciousness, which is lower. So hopefully more people are learning how this works as time goes on, because that's shifting gears with us. Because the previous world, which was known as the fourth world, is bye-bye. Have a great day, and I hope you all enjoy, love and joy with your families, your children, your loved ones, your co-workers, and everything that you share energy with. Bye now.